remains of another planet found inside the Earth. Yes, these remains are like two blobs as big as continents, i.e. stone balls. And some scientists claim that these are the remains of an alien planet Theia. Actually, about years ago, when scientists were studying earthquakes, they accidentally found two huge continents at this depth under Africa and Pacific Ocean, which were completely different from the rocks of the Earth. Now, the question was, how did these huge stones reach the core of the Earth? And then comes a claim from geophysicist Kyanum of Celtic University that yes, these are indeed the remains of an alien planet, and they also have evidence to prove it. Now, ideally, if someone makes a claim with so much confidence, then most of the time they have valid evidence because this is the scientific method to prove one's point. But just think what these geophysicists could show as evidence. I mean, the blocks which they are calling alien are deep inside the Earth, almost near the core of the Earth where no one has been able to reach before, and neither can reach today, and the alien planet Theia which they are being linked to is a hypothetical planet, which is said to have collided with the Earth and perished billion years ago, which means that these scientists can neither have samples of that block nor of that hypothetical planet named Theia, so I will ask again whether their research can be believed. Also, how can huge blobs exist inside the Earth without destabilizing its rotation, and how scientists have found out its existence in the first place? Now, honestly, whenever we work on such topics, many times we have to face many such myths, misconceptions, and doubts, but it has always been our endeavor to keep all these rumors and myths aside and present to you only logical conclusions which are based on scientific evidence, and we have used the same thinking and method on this topic. Also, we started right from its base, from the fundamentals. So first things first, how did scientists find these huge blocks near the core of the Earth? Well, here comes a very interesting story. The scientist's goal was not to find out if there might be a huge bubble under the Earth, so he went out to find it. In fact, he was trying to solve an unanswered mystery at that time. So the story begins with the fact that in the US's Hawaii Islands, about 8 volcanoes erupted in just a few years. Music. Now, normally, frequency eruptions occur only at the place where two tectonic plates collide with each other, that is, at the boundaries of tectonic plates. And this is because when two tectonic plates collide with each other, the temperature and pressure inside the Earth starts increasing and the magma present there starts coming out in the form of a volcano. But you can see how far Hawaii Island is from its nearest tectonic plate boundary. So logically, the first question is, why are Mauna Loa and Kila Ek, both mountains in Hawaii, the world's most active volcanic hotspots? What is happening under the Hawaiian Islands that, despite being so far away from the boundary of tectonic plates, there are two most active volcanoes in the world? Well, to solve this mystery, when scientists made a map of all the active volcanic regions in the world, they found out that all the links are connecting at two places. One is Africa and the other is the Pacific. Like literally, if you look at the map of these hotspots, Hawaii Island is in the Pacific, but these mountains of dry lava called Siberia Traps and Deccan Traps, which are now visible in Russia and India, were also formed when Siberia used to be above the Icelandic hotspot and India was above the Icelandic hotspot. Above the Reunion hotspot, that is, these two plates have shifted from their place. That is, all in all, two conclusions emerge here. First, there may be something underneath Africa and the Pacific Ocean that is giving rise to these hotspots, and second, it is possible in the mantle because even if the tectonic plates on the crust move ahead, these hotspots are not moving ahead. So, in such a situation, what was that thing that is under Africa and the Pacific Ocean and is in the mantle? Well, the only way to find that out was to find a way to enter the mantle, because obviously digging a hole directly was not an option. I mean, when Russia also dug the Kola super deep bore hole, they were able to reach down only about 100 kilometers. This means that if something like this happened, if I compare the surface of the Earth with my palm, then the depression in the lines of the palm that is visible is not that deep. We have not been able to dig till now. It is clear that scientists needed a better technique, and this is where some curious scientists from the US entered. Actually, till late, the study of earthquakes was gaining trend in the scientific community. So some scientists from the US thought, why not penetrate the depths of the Earth through earthquakes, because by then technology had advanced a lot in this field. In fact, not only in this field, but today overall technology has boomed a lot in the gaming industry. For thinking about how scientists map the interiors of the Earth using earthquake detection technology. So see, when any earthquake occurs, the whole Earth starts vibrating. That is, some waves that come out have the power to go through the Earth. So in such a situation, US scientists thought that by studying these waves, a map of the interiors of the Earth can be made, and the entire responsibility of this mapping was taken by MIT professor Kaidiaki, who measured the speed of the sine waves generated by earthquakes. Kerr discovered those alien blocks, actually as seen from seismith. It happens that these waves travel at different speeds through different mediums, so by recording this speed variation, they made a 3D map of the interiors of the Earth. As I said, these waves change their speed when the medium changes. So the initial prediction of the scientist was that while passing through the mantle, the speed of those waves will remain constant, but then the results of the experiment were completely different. While passing through the mantle present under the Africa and Pacific regions, the speed of these waves suddenly decreased, which means that there was something else present in the mantle which hit it, and the speed of those waves changed. On detailed investigation, it was found that there are sand dunes seen in some desert under Africa and Pacific. Like there are two structures which are as big as a continent, and then after these discoveries, the scientists named the blob in Africa as Tujo, and the one in the Pacific was named Jason, and after this discovery, they moved to the next step, that is to find the connection between hotspots and those alien blocks, whether the blob is giving rise to these hotspots and it is just a coincidence. To explain the origin of these blocks, two geophysicists of Germany's famous Max Planck Institute, U.R. Christensen and A.W. Hoffman, had presented a theory that according to them, millions of years ago when the Pangaea supercontinent was breaking up, at that time, due to the high oceanic crust density of the Earth, continental crust was formed. The crust started sinking below the mantle, and the event reached the mantle. After this, due to extreme temperature and pressure in the mantle, when it melted, the water particles present in it came in contact with the iron present in the core and transformed into iron peroxide, and because the molecules of iron peroxide are denser than lava, due to them, they started accumulating on the boundary of the core and the mantle, and with time they created two strange structures like blobs there, and because these blobs have stored dense material like iron peroxide for a long time, that is why when overloaded, that dense material bursts out from time to time, tearing the crust. Creating hotspots means that till now, scientists who have crossed level 2 knew that most of the hotspots are in Africa and Pacific region. Number 2 is, underneath these hotspots are two huge blobs, and number 3, these two blobs are giving birth to hotspots. Now it was time to go to level 3. You can see that the theory of Christensen and Hoff was able to explain how these blobs were formed. But this theory still had one answer missing. It was not able to explain why these blobs were formed specifically under Africa and the Pacific. They could have formed anywhere else too. Now look, in those days, many scientists thought a lot about this. They believed that we should find a theory that can build on what we have known so far. And well, they did not know that this very thought was going to take them to a dead end very soon. Actually, those scientists felt that it was as easy to connect the hotspots to the blobs as it was to connect them to Africa. And connecting it to the Pacific would be just as easy, but then whatever theories they gave, they were not able to connect the hotspots, the blob and the Africa-Pacific, these three elements, and finally, among all this case, a completely different theory came to the fore. This theory claimed that the blob is actually a piece of an alien planet called Theia, and the supporting researchers claim that they have proof of this. Now let me explain. qiskit. University geophysicist Kyanum published a theory according to which about 1 billion years ago, the Earth was much smaller than it is today, but then it collided with a planet as big as Mars, Theia, and due to that fierce collision, number 1, the Earth tilts on its axis, number 2, a big piece of Theia breaks and becomes our moon, and number 3, its remaining pieces get trapped inside the Earth. Actually, Yuan said that after this collision, the Earth had completely melted, and because the density of Theia was more than that of the Earth, that is why its pieces sank to the lower part of the Earth, i.e. our core. As far as their current location is concerned, an alternate research says that to stabilize this new tilt rotation of the Earth, these blobs got aligned diametrically opposite to each other, i.e. in Africa and Pacific. After all, there will be gyroscopes too, so this is what happens in its internal parts. They balance out the rotation of that gyroscope by doing different movements and adjustments. So is this it? Is the theory of Theia finally accepted that the hotspots blob and the Africa-Pacific not could connect these three together? Well, technically yes, because this tells us where the blocks came from, and then why are they in Africa and Pacific only we also know, And then further to that, if we connect that theory of oceanic crust, then we also know why these hotspots are created, meaning we now have the explanation of all those things that we needed. Just one thing, proof evidence, is this of Theia being true? Do we have any evidence that an alien planet like Theia ever existed? It must be working well. Chinyu and his team claim that they have proof. They say that when they made a computer simulation to test their hypothesis, they made a planet, Theia, similar to Mars, from the chemical composition of the moon, and then collided it with the Earth, then exactly the same happened in the simulation as they had predicted in the hypothesis. That is, a large part of Theia actually became the moon in their simulation. The Earth also melted due to that collision, and then the remaining pieces of Theia, due to their high density, reached the core and mental boundary of the Earth, which is exactly the view we see of our Earth today. That is, because of Yuan's theory. Now finally we have a scientific answer to the origin of these blocks, and possibly that it is true that the only problem is still, unfortunately, we have to take it as a theory. And you know what is the region? Well, to prove his claim about the remains of Theia, the computer simulation that Yuan has made, the chemical composition of Theia is just guesswork, because we still do not know the complete chemical composition of the moon. We have proper data only for its upper soil samples. So in such a case, making a simulated model of Theia from this incomplete dataset, I think here there is a chance of margin of error. However, we cannot completely rule it out, because that simulator model is at a very good level. Besides the existence of those lobes, this loophole of their simulation was solved by Yuan and his team as well. Body knows this, and that is why they are currently waiting to get the moon's rock samples from NASA's Artemis mission. They will try to prove whether the blob is actually a part of Theia or not by matching the event with the blob. And this brings us to that one final question, which is that even if Artemis brings the moon's rock samples, how will Yuan compare the blob hidden in our Earth's mantle with them? You know, in this entire video of today, this is the question that personally excited me the most, because Yuan is going to compare the moon's rock samples with the blob. This is a future project, which means how they will do this. There is no mention of its process anywhere till now.